When I studied antisocial behavior, and particularly at McGill, I studied female and male antisocial behavior. Male antisocial behavior tends to be much more physically violent. Mm-hmm. And so most of the people who are imprisoned are male, mostly because we imprison violent offenders, which is kind of interesting. We don't necessarily imprison white-collar criminals, even if they defraud like 60,000 people. But, you know, a mugger, well, we're going to lock him up. And yeah, I can understand that, although not entirely. Defrauding 60,000 people out of their pension isn't exactly nothing either. But in any case, it's almost all men in prison, and it's almost all violent offenders. What's the female equivalent of antisocial personality? And it's much more subtle. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is reputation destruction and exclusion, mean girl syndrome.
I thought this was a perfect intro, potentially for the subject, because we literally are comparing all the time male behavior, female behavior, and female behavior can be equally, if not more destructive than male behavior. So today, welcome to the channel. I'm Eric Hunley. That was Jordan Peterson you just saw. It was a clip from his channel. He won't be here. I only wish. But I do have the illustrious, wonderful Colonel Kurtz. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Well, thanks for coming. Now, I hang out with LawTube quite a bit and was kind of on the periphery of some of the Johnny Depp things, doing body language with him and Amber Heard. And Amber Heard, of course, is sort of like remedial 101 body language. She's somebody that anybody can study and just go, oh, yep, lie, oh, yep, oh, lie. I had a nickname for her and called her a pinball machine of micro expressions.
That's good. That's right.
So this has led me to Marilyn Manson as another case, which is interesting because probably like most of the population, I was like, oh, Marilyn Manson, no, you know, kind of a crazy demonic rock star, whatever. Didn't really follow him. It's almost a generational thing. I don't know. I graduated high school, I think, at the same time as Marilyn Manson. So when I think of that kind of act, I think of Alice Cooper, Gene Simmons, etc. And then Manson's like, oh, cool, you know, big rock star. Fine, whatever. I've seen that before. Even David Bowie, who he's quoted. But it's easy to picture in your mind, oh, well, he could be an abuser. I mean, he's weird, right?
Right.
But like everything else, he's a character. Like, I wouldn't picture David Bowie necessarily doing that. It's not fair to cast him in this role, per se. So you seem to be the person who is on the case of Marilyn Manson more than just about anyone in terms of interviewing people. And I've literally just started to scratch the surface and trying to research and put things together. I've got a little bit of a timeline that I've started. It's nowhere near complete. And I want to credit some other sources that I've run into like right away. Instagram seems to be the hot spot. Stand By Your Manson, Marilyn Manson Uncanceled, Mrs. Trickster 88, Pathological Propaganda, Leslie Lane. I've kind of communicated with all of them as well. But I'm really lucky to have you here today, and I will let you talk. How did you get involved with Manson?
Well, so I actually got into YouTube January of 2021 because I wanted to start covering the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. I had this intuition that it was going to be a really big deal at some point, and I might want to start making videos about it. You know, I'd seen some other people's videos on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation, and some really great videos, like Incredibly Average Brian. He calls himself Incredibly Average. And there were some really great videos, and it really inspired me to make my own. So I got into YouTube to make videos on the Johnny Depp situation. And then, as luck would have it, not more than 3 weeks after I started making videos, the Marilyn Manson allegations all came out at the same time. Now, you know, you mentioned the timeline, and I think that probably the best way of talking about this is not to get so bogged down in specific dates, but more in sort of a general trajectory, because it is so confusing, and there are so many threads, so many more than the Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation. But pretty much all of the allegations, for the most part, surfaced within the first couple of weeks of February, and in fact, almost all of them on the same day. So it was a coordinated media rollout between the different accusers, and they all posted, including Evan Rachel Wood, they all posted to their Instagram that same day in February. And so when this happened, I don't know if you remember this or not, but pretty much everybody just assumed that Marilyn Manson was guilty. And that was the dominant theme in the media, of course, because there were so many accusers, right? And at the time, I kind of thought, okay, yeah, he seems like a weirdo. There's a lot of women accusing him. Yeah, he probably did. But there was like this voice sort of in the back of my mind, and it was like, but wait a minute. You know what they've done. You know what the media have done to Johnny Depp. Let's hold on. Let's at least see what's going on here. And so I started looking at the different allegations that these women had posted on their Instagram accounts. And during that first part of February, Esme Bianco did a couple of different interviews. And her interviews were just, in my opinion, were just completely ridiculous. There were so many inconsistencies and things that just did not add up. And so at that point, that's when I decided, that first week, because I guess it was the first week the allegations came out, I decided to do a video. And the title of the video was Marilyn Manson, A Contrarian Perspective. And at that point, I was really 50-50. And I was just arguing, hey, let's slow down. There's some problems here. There's some things that don't make sense. Let's give this another look. And then from there, I just started making videos, because there really wasn't anyone else doing it. eHacker, he's a cool YouTuber. He was making some, but there weren't really nobody was really touching it. And so I started making videos, and then from that point on, I just kind of got deeper and deeper into it, and realized along the way pretty quickly, this guy is innocent. This is a hoax. And so from that point on, it just became kind of an irresistible story to cover.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I actually think it's a more interesting story, just in the tapestry of it, because I like any story that goes against a perceived narrative, sort of like a Malcolm Gladwell revisionist history. It's just kind of cool, and then you learn the other side, and there's a spoiler alert. So what I'd like to do today, and here's the basic timeline I have. Again, it's going back to 2018. Some groundwork, it appears, was being laid by Evan Rachel Wood. I don't know if it was specifically after Manson, and that's a good question too, because you followed this for so long. But she testified before Congress, and then later before the California Senate. And I'm curious, is it possible that she was just getting a little bit of fame? Because remember, that op-ed was written by Amber Heard also in 2018, and Me Too was big. So it might have been a fun, if not fun, that's probably very tacky to say, a way, fashionable, sure, a way to be ahead of the trend in front of Congress, and not even necessarily thinking about targeting a particular person, but just saying, hey, look at me, I've gone through this, on and on and on. And then as the time went on, people said, hey, that's got to be Marilyn Manson, right? Obviously, that's Marilyn Manson. And I believe there was a lot of murmuring around, that's Manson. Everybody knows that's Manson. That's Manson, right?
Right.
Do you think that might have been what started it, was kind of a fashion play and maybe blowing up?
I think that the question of Evan Rachel Wood's motives, that is probably the most fascinating part of this for me. And I don't think it's something that I will ever get to the bottom of. Why is she doing this? Why has she done this? But I do think that there are several good theories, and that's one of them, which is that she wanted to, you know, Me Too was really hot. We weren't sort of getting into that post Me Too era that I feel like we're almost starting to get into, where people are more skeptical. So it was just kind of like, it was a free for all. It was like, just accuse whomever. Me Too was hot, and she was getting, and I think that, you know, she'd already started like being more of an activist in LGBT, you know, Q circles and things like that. And so I think, yeah, you could be right that initially she did not name him. It was this nameless man, and it was fun, you know, to give a speech in front of the California Assembly, and it was fun to testify before Congress, and all of this stuff was fun. And then, though, when people began to push her and say, well, wait a minute, though, who are you talking about? And then, as you said, there were murmurs about Manson. It was almost like she kind of got boxed into a corner where she had to say it was him. Now, there are a couple of other things I want to bring up just briefly here. According to Marilyn Manson's lawsuit, Manson's attorneys, and I agree, they believe that Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore, her co-conspirator, became friends in 2016 or 2017, and then later they became lovers. They started dating. Mm-hmm. And I do think, you know, Ilma Gore, she's an accused hoaxer and fraudster, but she's also a hardcore feminist, gender activist, whatever term you want to use. And so I also agree with Marilyn Manson's lawsuit that she had a tremendous influence on Evan Rachel Wood and encourage this. And so I kind of feel like this is almost a kind of a perfect storm in a way, where we've got several different factors at work. And then clearly there's something with Evan Rachel Wood, there is something that's very much off in a similar way, I think, to Amber Heard, except she doesn't have a volatile temper.
Right. And Ilma Gore, who you bring up, may have been the original Jussie Smollett.
Yeah. She is a very, I don't want to say an interesting character, because I think she's pretty boring, but she is an habitual fraudster. We could go into it or not, but she, you know, for instance, she told a story in an article, an interview, about how she was kidnapped in LA by Trump supporters because they found out that she did a painting of Trump with a micro penis, and they were really upset about that. And so they kidnapped her and drove her around for a while. For a while, she was promising that she would, if people paid her a certain amount of money, that she would get their name tattooed onto her body. Failed to do that for many, many people. Turns out she was basically using this charity as a kind of a screen for her own, you know, greed and her own fraud. Anyway, I could go on and on, but she is definitely a really shady character. And so she got mixed up. Evan Rachel Wood got mixed up with her. They became really good friends. And around about the time that Evan Rachel Wood really kicked into high gear with this activism.
Yeah, but she's a really good artist. Look. I mean, look, Mom, look what I made.
You know, well, it's interesting you bring that up, Eric. That's the toilet, right? See, I don't have my glasses
yes,
on.
It is.
So it's interesting you bring that up. That's one of her frauds, because she posted on, was it Twitter, I believe, Ilma Gore posted this letter that she had this reprimand, or this threat that she had supposedly gotten from Louis Vuitton to stop using them for her toilet. And it turns out that was a fake too. So she's just a habitual attention seeker and liar, unfortunately.
Interesting. And is that not part of the lawsuit? And I'm already jumping around. I'm going to kind of get back in a sequence that she was posing as an FBI agent at one point.
Well, so she and Evan Rachel Wood, and I'm not sure who concocted this idea originally, but they came up with the idea to type up a fake FBI letter and sign it and put the signature as a real FBI agent, but the letter was a fraud, and the FBI agent had never heard of this case. They concocted a fake FBI letter, and the FBI letter stated that Marilyn Manson was under FBI investigation, and that Evan Rachel Wood was a part of this an essential part of this investigation, and was at a security risk. Now, they came up with this letter for two reasons. First of all, they used it as a recruiting device to recruit the other women that they would recruit to go after Manson, as if to say, hey, look, don't worry, you can make up stuff or whatever because this guy's a bad guy. The FBI is going after him. Like he's already toast, right? To kind of create a bandwagon effect and a sense of security on the part of the accusers. But the other thing that Evan used this fake FBI letter for, and here's what's just jaw-dropping. She was in and has been in a custody dispute of sorts with the father of her child, the actor Jamie Bell. And she wanted to take the child to Tennessee, and Jamie Bell did not want the kid moving to Tennessee. And Evan Rachel Wood apparently had told him that this was necessary because she was afraid for her life. She was afraid of Marilyn Manson's retribution. And so this was her excuse. So she actually submitted this fake FBI letter to the family court in California as a part of this custody dispute. So there is a fake FBI letter that she has submitted to family court. So I'm sure she's in a bunch of trouble with that too, or she should be. So
that's a federal crime.
Yeah, I would think so. At the very least, it's got to get her into some trouble with the judge in family court. I mean, if anybody in California family court is hearing this, like, isn't this a problem that you have a major actress who's committing fraud in the family court try to abscond with her child against the father's wishes? I just think that's really messed up.
Wow. I have no words.
Sorry.
No. I mean that's mind-boggling, and of course it's not out. Why is it not out there? Why is nobody talking about it? It is shocking. But
let me ask you a question. Actually, since you brought that up, like since you are pretty new to this case, do you feel like after what we've seen with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard that people are ready for this, or do you think it seems like there's still a lot of resistance among people to this case, to the truth?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And there's going to be, because it's a kind of an interesting thing because we're in a tribal situation, and that carries over. And to their credit, the Amber Heard team has really worked this hard. One way they've worked it is, if you're for Johnny Depp, you're a right winger.
Yeah.
And the fact is that it's absolutely not a political situation. It's a cultural argument, and it's a legal argument, but it's not a political argument. Now, right now, I would say that the quote right has probably been more supportive or more open because the right wing, however you want to call it.
That's fine. You don't have to watch what you're saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, but they hate the press. So you're going to go to wherever you're going to find support. And from what I saw with Johnny Depp and what I understand, Johnny Depp and all them went to TMZ, they went everywhere else, and they said, look, we've got these recordings, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. And they said, oh, I don't care. I don't want to hear it. And so Adam Waldman got a hold of some YouTubers and said, hey guys, got some information if you help me get it out there. And that became a counter narrative. And there's so many elements that are tied into this. It's fascinating if you want to stand back and just look at it. But you have old media, so your corporate press. So I'm going to say corporate press and independent press, because YouTubers like me, I'm independent. I'm so independent. I'm a hack. I'm not even a professional anything. I just babble.
Me too. Me too.
But we are a genuine threat. LawTube is a genuine threat. So you have TMZ who's ignoring Johnny Depp. All the outlets are ignoring Johnny Depp, and they just don't care. They're saying, okay, we have a narrative here. This is a controversy. We've drawn this picture. We're going to double down, triple down, quadruple down, no matter what you tell us. Then all of a sudden, the narrative gets out of hand. It gets out on YouTube. The public is starting to go, well, wait a minute. What's going on? And Johnny Depp had deep enough pockets to take her to court, which is one place that they couldn't completely control. Right. And he had the great fortune that Judge Penny said, yeah, televise it or let it stream.
Right.
And because of that, I mean, keep in mind that there were two cases that were going on at the same time. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, but also the Kardashian case with China Black.
China Black.
They were the same. Black China. Yeah, see, I'm old. Anyway, dyslexic on the name. Anyway, but as you can see, literally there's two different cases, but there's a very similar case. One just went right under the radar and boom, boom, boom,
Right.
move on. And then the other one, actually caught it. Now, Marilyn Manson, is he going to get the support? There's no way he can get the same amount of support as Johnny Depp, I feel personally.
Yeah.
Because he has built an entire image in what he's doing, the same way that Gene Simmons could not get the same kind of support as Paul McCartney. As an analogy, it's just very, very, very difficult. Doesn't mean it's fair, doesn't mean it's right. It's just reality.
Right.
And as long as that image is out there, they're going to keep pounding on that image. They're never going to let that go. And keep this in mind. These are grief merchants. And
interesting.
If you say that there's really not a problem, what is the point of their existence?
Well, you're definitely right that there is a cottage industry. Well, it's more than cottage, it's huge, right? There's a huge industry that has sprung up around perpetuating this certain perspective on gender relationships and Me Too and sexual
race.
Definitely.
And trans and woke. I mean, every issue,
every hot button issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you hit on something that's really important here that troubles me, which is I don't know if Marilyn Manson, if his trial is not televised, I am really worried that he's not going to receive the kind of vindication that I believe he's owed and the kind of vindication that by and large Johnny Depp got, because the mainstream media are going to twist things. We know what they're going to do. And so there'll be people like me and you and others who will try to get the word out, but it really would be wonderful by some luck or the grace of God if that trial could be televised, because if it can be televised and if people can see firsthand the evidence of what Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore have done, it's, right now, most people have just seen Phoenix Rising or they've just seen Westworld and they have and they've seen scary Marilyn Manson. And, I have to concede, and I've done this before, that Marilyn Manson, he very much had a hand in creating his image. And I do see almost a kind of maybe karma is not the right word, but there's a sort of a cyclical nature in life that what works for you at one time is going to end up hurting you at another time. That's just how it is for all of us. Sure. And I do think some of this is that this is just his time. In a metaphysical sense, I think this is just his time in the barrel and he's going to come out and he's going to be okay. But it is rough and it's not fair. And I don't like what it means for society. I don't like what it means for women. I do not recognize myself in this behavior, the Amber Heard or Evan Rachel Wood or any of the others.
And I'll say something that's probably going to piss some people off, but it's true. He has shown a remarkably shitty taste in women. I'm sorry, but there is a thing, and I think that Johnny Depp suffered it too.
I think he would agree. I actually think that Manson would agree with that, with the exception of his current
wife and somewhere, all right.
Marrying a decent woman, thank God, and a woman who has stuck by him and is a good person. But I think he would agree with and Dita. I don't know about Dita. I hear some good things about Dita, but I think by and large, he's even said it himself. He called himself flypaper for damaged women, and I think that the better way to phrase that, Manson, would be that you go after the damaged women, right? It's kind of framed. I didn't like how he framed it as a passive thing, like, oh, they just crazy ones come to me. Well, you're choosing them too, so take a little responsibility. But no, you're very much right. He's had shitty taste by and large.
Well, he actually could be considered like many women who have bad taste in men and they pick abusers. It's the same cycle. And
Marilyn Manson suffered, he did suffer some abuse when he was growing up, in the sense that his mother apparently had, is it Munchausen or Munchausen by proxy?
Munchausen. No, Munchausen is drawing to yourself. Munchausen by proxy is truly evil.
Yeah, I think it was by proxy. I think Manson said, if I'm remembering right, of course this was in the autobiography, and I can test, that that's the truth. There's a lot of stuff in there that's inaccurate, but I have heard this from some other sources as well, that Manson had an unhealthy relationship with his mom in the sense that she really liked for him to be sickly, and so I think there was a kind of a strange dynamic with that. I don't know.
That's Munchausen's by proxy, and I piss people off because I say that's what's going on with some trans kids too, but I don't use it.
I try to stay away from too many hot button issues. So if you don't see me reacting, it's because I'm like, well, I don't know that I really want to step into that can of worms. But
I understand that.
I'll let you. You can say your piece. You can say your piece on it.
Well, it doesn't matter. Right? But Munchausen by proxy is when you have a child and you harm the child, and everybody can celebrate what a wonderful person you are to handle your poor, sickly child who, breaks their arm or they're always sick or whatever. And whatever it is, the parent is drawing their image through the use of a child versus having their own image.
Right. So I think that there's definitely reasons why Marilyn Manson, Brian Warner has been attracted to a lot of problematic women, but and the same we could say with Johnny Depp. He was very clear about the fact that Amber Heard was a kind of a reflection of his mother, and so.
Yeah, well, and what I was going to say too is I kind of understand it, that there is a certain, and I'm going to use the term crazy, not as a medical diagnosis, but as somebody I wouldn't want to hang out with. Okay. Just crazy. It's just a term.
Right.
And there is a certain attraction to crazy. It could be sexually more exciting, more dynamic, more interesting. Now, Manson and Depp, both a lot of money, a lot of fame, could have just about anybody in the world to hang out with. What's different? What's unique? What's exciting? Well, what's different, unique, or exciting can wind up biting you. And that's why we have all these pictures. And so that's what I wanted to kind of do. We're going to finish out the hour, but I just wanted to kind of go through each person, a little thumbnail on who they are. And what I like to do is, I think it's better to show a picture of somebody so people can visualize who we're talking about, and it helps keep track and going forward. So, you know what? Never mind the timeline. I'll just go through a quasi alphabetical order. Ashley Morgan Smith-Gline. She's a good one from what I've seen. Her and Ashley Walters concocted a lot together, and she shares a lawyer with somebody. Does she share the lawyer with Bianco, or is it Walters who shares it?
She does. J. Elwanger, I think is how you say it. He's not too far from me, actually. He's here in Texas. So at some point when I decide that I'm going to flip on Manson and accuse him of something bad, I'll definitely go down the street and find Jay.
Well, there's Jay right there. He's making sure to show up with his client on TV. And I deliberately got a picture of him because I find it very interesting when I see ties like that, when you have a lawyer and multiple lawyers and stories sound the same. So, but we'll go back.
Let me say something about Ashley. A couple of things about her. So she got caught. You've probably heard this before, but she got caught trying to pass off Pinterest stock photos of love bites as her own because she was trying to validate that Manson, one of the things that these women say is that he would sort of bite them to death. And so anyway, so she put up this picture of someone with these really bad, bites. And then somebody figured out online, an astute viewer figured out that they were Pinterest stock photos. And so then she had to take them down because it was so obvious what she had done. She also, Ashley Smith-Gline, she also admitted that all of these accusers wrote their statements together. So Eric, you've already, I think, looked at the statements that they posted to Instagram. I'm not sure if you noticed this or not, but they sound like they're all ghostwritten by the same person, the same wording, the same phrasing, whatever. Well, Ashley, she got into a heated argument with a Manson supporter, and ended up disclosing that that they wrote their statements together. And I mean, you can find the quote. I put a screenshot in a couple of my videos. But anyway, so yeah, we've gotten some interesting stuff out of her.
Well, I haven't actually gotten through all the statements just because of the time and the amount that are there.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
still overwhelming,
No,
but
so much.
I did do a body language analysis on Evan Rachel Wood with our friend Gavin. And I was troubled by the language in the sense of just chattering. I was groomed. I was this, I was that. It was like using it was using clinical terms or terms to describe something without actually describing it.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, you're right. I love to use the really nowadays the very sort of broad, squishy language. I'll tell you one that's really popular is coercion. For instance, Ashley Walters, in her lawsuit, this is a disgruntled. You mentioned her. She was. Did you want to put her picture up? Actually, I'm sorry, you mentioned her, but she's disgruntled.
Sure, she's right there, I think.
Great. So she was a disgruntled ex-employee of Marilyn Manson. She used to be his personal assistant, and she has sued him. The lawsuit got tossed out by a judge, but she sued him, and she did not claim actual sexual assault. She claimed sexual coercion, which is basically like, oh, you know, he sort of he got me to do this, or he got me to sleep with his friends, sort of. Like, it's very sort of squishy language, and that's the case, unfortunately, with a lot of Me Too allegations nowadays, is that it's using these catchy terms like coercion and grooming and stuff, and using them by and large in ways that are not accurate.
Right, and that's what bothered me was when what was it she said? First of all, I didn't pursue him; he pursued me, but then didn't describe the scene, and that kind of stuck out of my mind because even Amber Heard. One thing that came out of the testimony, she talked about how she met Johnny Depp and the relationship, and then there was like a little story that went with it and how they met and everything. Whereas everything seemed to be more like I was reading a bulletized legal list. You know, like a lawyer threw it together and said she was groomed on about this time to that time, from this to this to this, and I'm just kind of like, and I don't like gory details. And a good example of that is if you watch Rihanna, we actually did an evaluation of Rihanna. I just put that out. And that was a deliberate thing because we're talking about all these accusations and people. So I'm doing a few videos that are going to be real victims. Rihanna was a real certified, proven police evidence. Chris Brown actually pled guilty. So 100%, you know, it's completely verifiable. So I think it's good to step back and go, let's look at this person and how are they speaking versus the other ones. And Rihanna didn't go out into every detail. She went into some detail, which sounds very similar to some testimony you actually have heard recently, believe it or not. I encourage everybody to go listen. There's really funny echoes. But you can get a sense of this really happened. Yeah, and it's like with her, it was like she's telling, but she's holding back, and you can see her just not wanting to get into it, but holding it back versus punching it out. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
No, it does make sense, and I think that I find almost all of the Manson accusers, their delivery style, those who've done interviews, I find it to be really problematic. Except I do have to concede, you know, Evan Rachel Wood, she's a very, very good actress. She's not an Amber Heard. And if I did not know better, I was watching Phoenix Rising, I was watching that documentary that she did about Manson. If I didn't know better, and if I didn't, you know, if I hadn't researched it, and so forth, I think that I would find her in a lot of ways credible, except, you know, when you watch that documentary, there's still a lot of things that don't make sense. But she's definitely going to be in a lot of ways, a more formidable opponent than Amber Heard was. I mean, Amber Heard, in some ways, it couldn't have gotten much worse. Her performance on the stand, but
true. But Evan did one thing that bothered me, and I did not know until somebody told me later. Another point. Her thing, I was like, what is that?
Mm.
And they said, it's funny because she reminds me of Manson. And I popped in a video from 2020 of Manson. It was just literally an Apple video, whatever. But he's sitting there. And he did exactly that. And the vocal, the pacing and the vocal, it was shocking. It was really, really, really shocking. You could totally see it. So it's like, okay. And that sent a creepy vibe to me that reminded me. And I know I keep saying Amber Heard. I don't want to say it. It's just there's these weird parallels. But Amber Heard dressing like Johnny Depp the following day, every single day. There's this weird mirroring factor.
Yes,
and seeing that
Evan
bother
does
me.
mirror. And Evan does mirror people. You can look at in a really marked way. You can look at different relationships that she's had. One of them that's so obvious to me is when she dated Zach Villa, or I'm sorry, she was engaged to Zach Villa, and they got the same like sort of asymmetrical short haircut with like a lock of hair coming down here, and then they both dyed their hair purple. You can look at pictures of her with everyone she's been with. Now, when she was with Manson, the person that she mimicked was Manson's ex-wife, Dita Von Teese, the one that Evan replaced, basically. And, Evan went from, one particular style to suddenly when she's with Manson, now she's doing the glamour girl, the sort of the burlesque look with the sort of the 40s hair and the really sophisticated, dark dresses and things like that. And so anyway, I think there's definitely something there to that. And I will say that Evan was not impressive in the interviews that she did after Manson's lawsuit came out. She was on The View and she did a couple of other interviews. And I thought a couple of those, particularly her appearance on Good Morning America and on The View, I thought she did seem, and there at one point she just wouldn't even look up when she was discussing the lawsuit when they asked her about it. She just looked down the whole time. So
yeah, and that in of itself isn't always bad. It depends on where they're accessing and what. So it is hard. I mean, I will say that. And she was hard. She was much harder than Amber Heard. Much harder.
Right.
Okay, so let's go forward to Brittany Lee. She seemed to be like one who, I guess, came out. I don't know what happened. It seemed like a pile-on almost.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I really am not even really up on what's up with her because she came out so recently. And at this point, I kind of feel like it is a matter of just sort of a pile-on with people like her. Okay. But she's someone that I saw Marilyn Manson Uncanceled posting about her, I believe, and doing a rebuttal to her. That's a really good site for people to check out. Also, he has an Instagram page and a Twitter page. And then, as you mentioned, Stand By Your Manson, also a great one. Okay, what do you have here?
Dan Cleary. I know you have something for Dan.
Yeah, so several things about Dan. Now, Dan played a huge role in the second part of Phoenix Rising. It was, in fact, the first 25 minutes. It was like the Dan Cleary show, basically. And the reason why he is so significant to Evan Rachel Wood and to that documentary is because he's one of the few male voices validating what she's saying. And also, he is often presented as being Marilyn Manson's personal assistant. So, of course, if he was his personal assistant, then he must know if there was abuse going on. And so Dan Cleary posted on Twitter that everything Evan Rachel Wood and the women were saying was true. And he'd seen Evan Rachel Wood change when she was with Manson. Well, that all sounds well and good. The problem is Dan has admitted multiple times, including on his podcast, this isn't anything I'm just getting out of nowhere. He's admitted that he never saw any abuse by Manson toward Evan Rachel Wood. Let me repeat that. He never saw a single instance of abuse by Manson toward Evan Rachel Wood. All he says is that he thought that her aura darkened over time. And he also was not Marilyn Manson's personal assistant when Evan Rachel Wood was with Manson. He was a guitar tech, which means, that he was not around them in an intimate way. It was not a personal assistant situation. Now, where people are getting the idea that he was his personal assistant, he was his personal assistant for a brief period of time when years later, when Manson was with his wife, now Lindsay. And Dan claims that he doesn't claim that he ever saw Manson sexually assaulting or hitting or whatever to Lindsay. What he claims is that Manson got in a fight with Lindsay and told her that he was going to kill her, and Dan would have to bury her in the desert. Now, do we really think that Marilyn Manson was really suggesting that he was going to kill his wife and that Dan would have to bury her in the desert or whatever? No, of course not. Manson's known for having a dark sense of humor. I don't know what he says when he gets into fights or whatever, but if that's the worst thing that Dan Cleary can come up with, that he made a flippant remark like that, then that's ridiculous. So the thing is, Eric, is that this case is this case with Manson, it's super complicated, but every time you look at the particulars of it, the accusations fall apart. So just like Dan Cleary, people say, oh, well, his personal assistant said that he abused Evan Rachel Wood. Well, actually, no, he didn't. And he wasn't his personal assistant, though.
So that's an interesting point you bring up. Let's say he knew that Manson was a vampire sucking auras out of people, would you answer the call to become the personal assistant of said person where they could suck your aura out later?
That's right. It doesn't speak very well of Dan that if he thought that this woman, Ed and Rachel Wood, was being abused in any kind of way, even vampirically, that he would then go back and work for this man. And look, here's something you got to understand too, and this isn't just with Dan. There are all kinds of people in Hollywood who have huge egos and who think that they should have been the one. And, so you've got someone who spends his life, no offense to Dan, but someone who spends his life as a guitar tech or as a personal assistant and probably thinks that he should have been Manson or he should have been, a rock star. And I do think that there's a certain degree of jealousy that I pick up. And not only that, but people are anxious for any fame that they can get. And I don't mean this to be mean to Dan Cleary, but the most notable thing probably that he will ever do in his life is tweet about Manson and star in Phoenix Rising.
Well, and in fairness, most guitar techs are very talented guitar players. That's how they become a tech. Yeah. You don't want to have somebody you just go to the Denny's and say, hey, you need a job, kid? Oh, here, come here.
They are talented, and I think that's why there's jealousy, because they think, I mean, imagine just being one step away all the time from having a dream life like a rock star, and but you're a guitar. I don't know. Maybe I'm a petty person, but I think that would start to bug the hell out of me after a while. Anyway.
Well, yeah, especially if it's your dream and all that. And in fairness, he could be more talented than people in the band. I mean, in Nashville, there's a running joke that the guy busking outside of 7-Eleven is better than anybody in the studio. And there's some truth to it.
Right. Do you hear that, Manson fans? Dan Cleary is probably a better musician than Marilyn Manson. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. There's the pull quote.
Oh, man.
Anyway,
okay,
I don't know.
Another one for
I do. We briefly talked about her, and we have to, though, again, because she's a big one. Esme. Why happy pictures?
I know. Yeah, so Esme, there's a lot to say about Esme. One of the things that's interesting about her is that she participated in Phoenix Rising, and then her participation got strangely eliminated. And I've heard through the grapevine that there was some kind of a falling out. I don't know anything conclusively, but there was some kind of a falling out between her and Evan. Or she chose not to participate in Phoenix Rising. So if you've seen Phoenix Rising, you know that there's a brief moment where she's on screen because she's sitting next to Evan Rachel Wood when Evan Rachel Wood is talking. So they didn't cut her out. But no, there's no speaking with her or anything on camera, and I don't think that was the original intention. Now Esme is suing Manson for $10 million, and she, like 3 other women, including Ashley Walters, who are suing him or have sued him, all 4 of these women have all claimed repressed memory in their lawsuits, in their filings.
Oh,
and
boy.
It is such bullshit, because repressed memory, if it happens, and it's a very dubious concept in the psychiatric community, but if it does happen, it only happens with children. The likelihood that you would have 4 grown women who experience abuse in their 20s and then they all forget it for 7 years or whatever, until they're all reminded of it when they hear about Evan Rachel Wood coming forward, complaining about her abuse, and they put it together. Oh, it's Manson, and suddenly it's like ding, ding, ding. It's really ridiculous, and to me, that is one of the things that just lets you know that this is a hoax. When you have 4 women claiming repressed memory, and it's just absurd.
Out of curiosity, do they have the same therapist? This is real because Elizabeth Loftus did work on that about the repressed memories, because I don't know, I believe it was a preschool. I forgot the name of it. Starts with an M, but I mean, it was
the McMartin trial.
It was McMartin. I always mix up McMartin with poor McCann. Yeah, McCann. I mix up McMartin McCann.
Oh yeah.
The poor girl who got, anyway, the McMartin trial. And I mean, they had it where they were in the basement and there was these rituals and everything. I mean, and kids were believing it, full on satanic panic. And what could be better than Manson and satanic panic? He liked D&D too. Right. So we know that there's a problem.
Right. Well, and another interesting thing too is that in Phoenix Rising, Evan Rachel Wood tells this story about how Manson tied her to this prayer kneeler and beat her with a Nazi whip until the prayer kneeler broke. And so then in Esme Bianco in February of 2021, then when she does these interviews, she comes out with this story about how she was tied to a prayer kneeler and whipped until, and I think that's kind of interesting once again that Esme disappears from participation in Phoenix Rising, and then basically ends up copying Evan Rachel Wood's story. I think that's kind of strange. By the way, Evan Rachel Wood said that this prayer kneeler broke. Well, there are pictures of the prayer kneeler photographed well after when Evan Rachel Wood said this happened, and the prayer kneeler was intact. It was shot. It was used for a project. I don't know if it was a photography project or an album cover or something for Manson. So anyway, there's another inconsistency for you as well. But Esme Bianco, she tells this story that before she even started dating Manson, before she moved in with him and came to America and all of that, that he enticed her to his home under the pretext of shooting a guerrilla style video on his flip phone. And he told her well ahead of time that at the end of this video, at the climax, that it was going to involve this scene, this whipping scene where he was going to have to manhandle her. And she even admits that he told her in emails or whatever, well before she came over to participate, that it was going to involve some manhandling, some roughness. And in fact, of course, Esme had been a bondage and fetish model for a while, so she was well accustomed to doing this kind of stuff. So by her own testimony in these interviews, she goes to Manson's home, and she spends the whole weekend with him. And not only does no abuse happen the entire weekend, but he doesn't even try to have sex with her. He does not have sex with her that whole visit. She comes all the way over, hangs out with him in lingerie the whole weekend, and no sex occurs. That's how predatory this guy is. Then at the final scene that they're going to shoot, the one that he has warned her about, that he's telegraphed, you're going to be manhandled. But they shoot the scene where he whips her. And so to me, one thing that's quite obvious here is that this was not some predatory setup for this guy to get his rocks off. This was exactly what he said it was going to be. It was a shoot, but it was a legitimate shoot or movie shoot or an art project that ended as he told her it would end. And she admits that she even told him, how much she loved it and acted like she liked the whipping and all of that, right? So of course he's supposed to be a mind reader, I guess, and know that she doesn't like it. She never said no, and she admits that she never said no.
Interesting.
Well, anyway, so after this, she shows a picture on Good Morning America of her back that's supposedly been ripped up and scarred up by these whip marks. Except, first of all, the picture that she showed, you can find this later, but the picture that she showed, it's cut off at the neck. You don't even know whose back you're looking at. And then secondly, if you look at it, it's very clear that these are not whip marks, but in fact, they're merely the indentations of someone who has been tied up with a rope. And so she has this picture that she's purporting to be something that it's very clearly not. And this is what passes for evidence for their side. That's about the most that you're going to get from the Manson accusers. And by and large, they don't have anything. You know, Ashley Smithline, she claimed, much like Amber Heard, that she suffered these terrible injuries by Manson, that she broke her nose at one point. But guess what? She doesn't have any medical records. Nobody has any medical records of any of the things that they're claiming.
I love this super chat. What the heck is a Nazi whip? Is it like a regular whip with a tiny mustache?
So, so one of the things that's been reported about Manson is that he has collected Nazi memorabilia, and this is a whole other, can of worms to get into. But needless to say, that once you get into this, you see that he's not a Nazi, and it's not anything nefarious. But these women are claiming that he had this like authentic, like I guess, artifact from the Nazis, this whip, and that's what he was using. But I don't even buy that. I think that's yes.
Okay, so jumping forward, we have Gabriella, who was the long Instagram statement. From what I understand, there's some things that were released, and she's kind of disappeared, and it was a Sour Girl account or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's good you bring her up though, because that's a perfect example of the kind of non-credible allegations that have been leveled against Manson, and how a number of these have just fallen away. So Gabrielle claimed that, she claimed the same thing the number of them are claiming: harassment, rape, etc. That they started, that he lured her in, they started dating, and then he started, doing these bad things. Well, anyway, one of the things that she claimed was that she was so distraught over his abuse, the abuse that she had suffered, that she had herself on Christmas one year, on I think it was 2015, Christmas 2015. She had herself, that might be wrong, the date, but she had herself 5150 put in a psychiatric hold, basically committed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all nice and everything, except Marilyn Manson's former assistant came forward and showed me text, and I published these in a video, texts from Gabriella that were sent on Christmas, the very date that she claims that she was in a psychiatric hold or whatever. And their text in which Gabriella is inquiring with Manson's assistant where Manson is, because she wants to check in, she wants to say hi and all that. These are not psychologically disturbed texts. They're clearly not from someone who's locked up. And when you're 5150, they're not giving you your phone so you can send text anyway.
Well, wait a minute. Was it Australia time? I'm sorry.
It was California. The other thing about her is that she did disappear. She pulled her Instagram account, and she's gone away. Another one who went away was Annie Abrams. This was another woman who accused him on Instagram, and it turns out she was just completely discredited and exposed as being a habitual hoaxer. She had told people she had cancer before, had pictures up on one of her social media of her bald. I mean, just a Looney Tune. But the funny thing is that some of the lawsuits against Manson, at least one of them, actually mention her as a primary accuser. So it's like these lawyers in these lawsuits are mentioning discredited accusers.
Well, this is who started the bite stuff, if I recall. Jenna Jameson.
Oh, God.
She came out and said that Manson was into biting, and so she broke up with him, I think, literally the day after all the accusations, because there are no charges.
That's what I remember, biting and lots of anal sex. But here's the thing that she didn't say. Okay, she didn't say, and then I told him to stop, and he wouldn't. Ladies, those are the magic words that I'm waiting to hear in almost all of these allegations. Is I said no, and then he continued. Now I know there's a few of the women who allege that, but by and large, it's become a crime now. Men can't mind read, and I'm not saying I even believe what Jenna Jameson said about that stuff, but basically what she said is that he likes to bite during sex, and he was enthusiastic about anal sex. Well, okay, you can break up with him. You don't need to publicize that. That is not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a crime. So.
All right. This one I think is a minor one again. Love Bailey.
Yeah, but she's interesting. She's interesting for a particular reason. Okay, so one of the things that I've been arguing is that you cannot take the number of accusers at face value. You can't, the media likes to report that there are like, I don't know, like 15 accusers or whatever. It keeps growing. But when you look into that, a number of the accusers are people like Love Bailey, who aren't even accusing him of sexual harassment or assault. Love Bailey, she's a stylist, and she claims that on a particular photography shoot, or maybe it was a video shoot, I can't remember. She was on a shoot, and she was a stylist on a shoot, and Marilyn Manson showed up, and at some point he brandished a gun, not in like a threatening way, but in kind of an outlandish way or whatever. Now, first of all, I don't know that I take anything at face value that she's saying, because again, people have ulterior motives, 15 minutes of fame and bad memories and whatever. But let's just say that he did that. Well, rock stars and rappers and people like that, I have known them to at times brandish guns in sort of outrageous ways. And we have no context of anything. It could be that people were sitting around and someone was like, oh, you got a gun, man? Let me see, or whatever. Like, I don't know. But what I do know is that pulling out a gun in a theatrical way on a photo shoot is not the same thing as raping someone or assaulting someone. So that kind of stuff gets lumped in. You have the same thing with Phoebe Bridgers. She came out when all these other women did, and she accused Manson. She said that, when she was a teenager, she went to his house and that he made a joke about a rape room. Well, that's your big accusation, that he made a joke? Why is that even getting reported? And by the way, what Phoebe Bridgers is not telling people is that when she came back from Manson's house, she posted a cute photo of Manson's cat in the sink. Well, then she went back and she deleted that, because you know what? When you make accusations against Manson, it's probably not a good idea to have cutesy photos you've taken of his cat. So anyway, again, it's just some craziness with these people. Who do we have here? Oh, I'm sorry.
That was Phoebe already. You mentioned brandishing. I was just going to bring up another point too. Some people feel very strongly about guns and don't like them at all. Don't like being near them. And just having somebody, like you said, he could have been showing it to somebody, just pulling it out,
right,
and setting it on the table next to somebody could be seen as brandishing to somebody who's sensitive. I do know there are people who have called the police with somebody who has an open carry legally, and they're not pulling out or anything else, and saying that they're brandishing a gun because they're wearing a gun. Again, right. I don't know the levels. I would really want to break it down of very specifically what that was.
That's a great point, because that's the thing, is that we don't have, in a number of these situations, what we are lacking is context. And that's one of the things that I did not like about these Instagram posts as well. I realized that some of the women went ahead and did interviews outside of that, but for a number of these women, they put these Instagram posts up, and that's it. I mean, I just think there's something problematic about the way that so much of this is being conducted over social media. And that's why I don't appreciate people criticizing those of us who are on social media, lawtubers or YouTubers or whatever, because we didn't create this phenomenon. We're responding to it. It's the other people who have been trying to adjudicate this stuff in the media, not keeping it in the courts. Evan Rachel Wood, there's no charges filed against Manson. She hasn't even sued him. Now, I understand there's things like statutes of limitations and whatever, but I'm just saying, like, most of this is being prosecuted in the media.
No, I agree. We're running against the clock here, so we've got
about 10 more minutes.
Okay,
about 10 minutes.
Sarah McNeely.
Okay, so Sarah, she is one who has been kind of quiet as well, but she did have a brief appearance in Phoenix Rising. There was a scene in Phoenix Rising where a number of the accusers get together and talk, and so she's in there sort of more in the background. Really, the only thing I have to say about Sarah McNeely is that when her allegations came out, there were pictures circulating online. I've got one of them in one of my videos of her. It was an advertisement for an extreme suspension bondage show that she did. I believe it was in LA. And on the advertisement, it's advertising the fact that she's going to do the suspension from the back, where I don't know how familiar people are with this. I was not too familiar.
Ooh, it was
Someone
Indian.
explained it to me. They put holes in your back. Yeah, they put holes hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's holes in the back, and then the hooks go through the holes, and so the person is actually kind of like something from Hellraiser, from a Clive Barker movie, strung up. Well, so anyway, this is something that apparently she had done this kind of. She's a model. She had done this kind of modeling before. Now, the only reason I bring that up is just to say that again, a number of these women that Manson, who have accused Manson, these are, and I'm not trying to say that if you do extreme bondage or whatever that you deserve to be assaulted or anything like that. I don't believe he assaulted these women. But what I'm trying to say is these are just, with all due respect to these women, these are not just your average, like, girls next door. These are people who are involved in a lot of stuff that most people would find pretty extreme. And the point that I'm trying to make then is I think that there's something disingenuous about a number of them, like Esme Bianco, who are trying to basically shove that under the rug and act like they were sort of born yesterday, and that this guy just sort of, got them involved in this cult of kinky sex or whatever. And by the way, I'm not sure if you've heard this or not, Eric, I don't even believe that Manson is into kinky sex. I have interviewed a number of women who have slept with him or had relationships with him, including his ex-girlfriend, Paul Levice, who was with him for a number of months, and some others. I've interviewed some mutual friends of his and Evan Rachel Wood's. And anyway, they all tell me that he was not into kinky sex, that he was kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of vanilla. And in fact, Evan Rachel Wood even said to a couple of mutual friends of hers that I interviewed on my show that sex with Manson was sweet and vanilla. It wasn't kinky. So I'm just I've really just started to doubt this whole narrative that's been created around him in a lot of ways.
Okay, so we have Scarlett Capella.
Yeah, now this is another one that I'm not too familiar with, to be honest, with you. That's, again, I would have people look at Marilyn Manson on Cancel, because I'm sure that he or Stand By Your Manson have done a write-up on her. What little I do know, I'm kind of blanking. She's not a big figure.
Okay, well, good. That leads off with one more, and that's Tori Lynn.
Yeah, and so I don't have anything particularly interesting to say about her either. She's one of, she and some of the others that we've talked about, like I said, kind of after their initial posting, they sort of fell away. The ones who have really remained in the public eye have been, well, obviously Evan Rachel Wood, Esme Bianco, Ashley Walters, and a couple of the others. But
Smithline, right?
Yeah, and Ashley Smithline. Yeah, Ashley Smithline. Okay. Any others?
That's all I could come up with in a short notice.
Well, perfect. Well, let me ask you. So, is there anything, kind of having started looking into this as you have been?
Mm-hmm.
What do you find? Is there anything that you found so far that you're like, well, that does look pretty bad for Manson, or that's really a sticking point, or I don't know if I can get past that? Is there anything that you do find compelling in terms of the arguments that have been made against him?
At this point, I'm going to say no, because I haven't watched Phoenix Rising yet. Mm-hmm. I ultimately will, but I know that that's pushing a narrative. And even right now, I know your channel has an opinion. It's got a bias. Right. Everybody has a bias. And while I'm leaning toward the interesting angle of what if he didn't do it, I'm kind of doing it just on the premise that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So I'm not. That's a good premise. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm starting, is like, even a statement analysis, it sounds really weird, or in body language, you should always start that they're telling the truth, no matter what. They're telling you the truth. And a statement analysis, that's especially true. They are telling you the truth, but they're being deceptive through the truth sometimes. See, it's like, really listen to what they're saying, watch. And I don't have enough yet to understand. I'm a little slow. I've got to just kind of feel my way through, look, listen, gather. And I'm just trying to gather every piece of information and then slowly disseminate it back out. I did a series on America's Untold Stories, still sort of ongoing, about Alec Baldwin and the shooting. We've got 23 videos on that.
Oh, wow.
And that was all over the place. And so to let everybody know here, and I hope you consider following this, I'm going to be wrong. I'm always wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I might speculate. I'll throw something out. It's like, oh, that didn't turn out to be true. or, oh, that looks bad. But over time, I hope to learn and narrow down a body language, statement analysis, things like that, bringing in experts. If there's handwriting, I have handwriting experts. I've got FBI people. Anyway, just I have a lot of people. If you go through my catalog, you'll see the range on the channel. Everyone from John McAfee to Carol Baskin to FBI, CIA, all kinds of three-letter agencies. The guys who brought down Pablo Escobar have been on here. So I'm very interested in my interests are wide. One story I'm going to come up. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one story I'm going to come up with that's going to be coming out soon is Tommy Morrison, the boxer who was in Rocky V. And I'll give you I'll give you one sentence. Everybody knows Tommy Morrison. He was the boxer who was in Rocky V, was slated to fight Mike Tyson, tested positive for HIV, was kicked out of boxing, fell to drugs. His life was ruined. He died of AIDS in 2013.
Oh my God. That sounds like a fascinating story.
Yeah, except for one problem. It was all a lie. And that's the story. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff.
Now. You got me hooked. You got me
right.
hooked. Well,
anyway, so that's the counter narrative that I'm going for. One of Michael Jackson's lawyers has reached out to me. I'm going to talk to him and hopefully learn more about that. I'm not completely decided. I've had OJ's manager on. He's a little tough to take, but I am interested in the stories and the journey and learning with folks. So I hope.
That's great. That's great. Well, and I was just going to say, you talked about early on about the timeline and basically, I feel like for people who want to have more of a handle on that, who tuned in for that, and the basic sort of trajectory is that Evan and Manson started dating in 2006 when they met when she was 18, started dating when she was 19. She claims that something. Oh, shoot. His battery's running low. Sorry about that.
No
anyway, she claims that they they dated for a while, they broke up, got back together, then finally broke up in the late 2000s, like 2000, oh gosh, I think it was 2008. No, it was later than that. Anyway, so in 2014, as late as 2014, Evan Rachel Wood was still sending a nice message to Marilyn Manson. When Marilyn Manson lost one of his parents, she posted something on her social media about a good friend, an old friend of mine I haven't talked to in a while, but he lost someone today. I'm thinking about him. And it wasn't until 2016 that Evan Rachel Wood even started talking about a sexual assault. Now, one thing that's interesting is that in an interview that she did in Rolling Stone in 2016, she claimed that she had been sexually assaulted by two people in her life. One was a significant other, and one was the owner of a bar. And yet, later in the article, she talked about Marilyn Manson in a very different context. And it seems pretty evident that Marilyn Manson was not a significant other or certainly the bar owner. And so that's a little bit weird. And it wasn't then until she met Ilma Gore and became friends with Ilma Gore in around 2016 or 2017 that she really got going with a lot of this activism. And so then, it's in 2018 and in 2019 when we see her testifying before Congress and testifying before the California Assembly and working to get the Phoenix Act passed. And this is also when she starts talking about a lot about her supposed abuse. But as you noted, she did not actually disclose who her abuser was until the other women did. They all pretty much did it on the same date, February 2nd, 2021. And then after that, in the months after that, Manson was sued by 4 of his accusers. One of those suits has already been tossed out. And then Manson sued Evan Rachel Wood a couple of months before the Johnny Depp trial in March of this year of 2022. So that's basically, for people who want to know, that's basically the timeline. I'm not great with dates. It's not one of my favorite things, but that's basically the trajectory there. So anyway, good luck to you. All I want to say to you and to your viewers is that it is a very daunting case when you first when you first start looking at it, because there are so many threads. I mean, you can see that there are even a couple of cases you bring up, and I'm like, oh God, I don't even remember. It was so long, so long ago, and that person has faded away. But it is a really complicated case. But there will be a number of us covering it, and this trial is not going to be for another couple of years, and so you've got a long time to catch up. Basically, is what I would say.
Enough time to get sick of it, then I'll really know it. Georgina,
people still aren't even sick of the Johnny Depp thing.
I am. Wait, thank you so much, Georgina. Thank you, one of my most loyal viewers. Thank you so much. And folks, if you like this, please consider subscribing, tell a friend, like all that good stuff. But most importantly, tell me what you think, because I haven't decided yet. What do you think of the situation? I plan to break down each person along the way and look at every story as I go. If people are interested, if people are not interested, I will very quickly move to something else because I'm not a charity. But I want to hear in the comments, what do you think? Do you think he's a monster? Do you think he's not guilty? Do you think there are problems? Please let me know. And I'd love to hear from you. Libly, thank you very, very much from Australia.
Oh, I know Libly from Twitter. Hi, Libly.
But until next time, Colonel Kurtz,
yeah, I'd love to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh, for sure. Thank you.